Nicholas Clark was a figure who possessed it all: influence, riches, and a dominion forged through his relentless drive. He meticulously managed every facet of his existence, ensuring that surprises had no place in his world. It was just another evening, one that promised to be a straightforward first date, but then everything took an unexpected turn. She was never meant to stand out. She was not meant to confront him. She certainly had no obligation to rescue him. As two men loomed in the shadows of the alley, seeking an easy mark, Nicholas grasped two crucial truths in mere moments. Firstly, he was not the one steering this situation. Moreover, Emma Hale was not the type of woman who required rescue. Emma Hale had always approached dating with a sense of skepticism. With a career that demanded her full attention, she found little tolerance for obligatory chats over extravagant meals, and she was far from convinced by the notion of love at first sight. Many of her previous outings had concluded with her fabricating a reason to depart prematurely, exasperated by the superficiality of the men she encountered. However, when her closest companion, Olivia, persuaded her to embark on a blind date with a successful yet unexpectedly humble businessman, she paused for just a moment before giving her consent. Ultimately, what was the most terrible outcome that could unfold? The dining establishment stood out as one of the most prestigious in the city, featuring a sophisticated ambience with subdued lighting and the gentle melodies of soft jazz filling the air. Emma arrived a few minutes early, eager to absorb the ambience before her encounter with the enigmatic man she had consented to dine with. As she perused the menu, a rich and velvety voice broke through her contemplation. "Seems you are Emma." She lifted her gaze and encountered Nicholas Clark directly. He stood tall, clad in a perfectly tailored dark navy suit, his sharp features accentuated by a confident smile that hinted at a familiarity with success. His brown eyes exuded a natural allure, yet beneath that surface lay a keen awareness, as if he were perpetually evaluating the circumstances around him. Emma reached out her hand. "So, you must be Nicholas." He grasped her hand with a steady, confident handshake, his touch warm yet measured. "I trust one didn't make you wait too long." She offered a subtle smirk. "Indeed, you've arrived just when you needed to. That's quite uncommon." He let out a soft laugh and slid the chair out from the table, positioning it across from her. "I enjoy creating positive initial perceptions." As the evening unfolded, Emma found herself pleasantly surprised by the effortless flow of their conversation. Nicholas stood apart from the crowd of affluent entrepreneurs showcasing their achievements. He possessed sharp intellect, a clever sense of humor, and, above all, he truly paid attention. He inquired about her work, not merely as a matter of courtesy but with authentic interest, and he appeared to be truly impressed by her achievements. He shared with her the story of his path through the hospitality industry, detailing how he transformed a struggling restaurant into a thriving multimillion-dollar empire. As he savored a sip of his wine, Nicholas contemplated the roles of a lawyer and a businessman. "That seems like a fascinating blend." Emma inclined her head. "Fascinating. Or perilous?" He wore a sly grin, a touch of each. After what felt like an eternity, Emma discovered the pleasure of a date once more. She was neither glancing at the clock nor devising a plan for her departure. Instead, she found herself captivated, enchanted by Nicholas's effortless charm and keen intellect. As they stepped out of the restaurant, the night air felt refreshing, and the city lights illuminated the tranquil streets with a gentle radiance. Nicholas suggested accompanying her to her car, and while Emma was more than capable of managing on her own, she realized she appreciated his presence. Yet, as they veered onto a side street, the entire scene shifted. Two figures stepped out from the darkness, their actions swift and deliberate. One towered above the other, his hood drawn low, obscuring his features, while the shorter figure was solidly built, exuding an air of aggression in his posture. They positioned themselves in front of Emma and Nicholas, obstructing their route. The taller man commanded, his voice deep and resolute, "Wallet and watch." Emma's heart raced, but it wasn't out of fear. Her body tightened, not out of fear, but from a primal sense of alertness. Nicholas let out a slow breath and slipped his hand into his jacket, his face a mask of composure. "Let's avoid escalating this situation," he said, maintaining a calm tone. Emma cast a quick look in his direction, evaluating the way he held himself. He managed the situation with a composed demeanor, yet she noticed the subtle tightness in his jaw. She observed that one of the men, the shorter one, was casting a glance at her purse. He then shifted, extending his hand toward it. In that fleeting moment, Emma chose her path. Emma had always been instructed to ponder her actions carefully, to evaluate the circumstances before taking a step forward. In that instant, as the shorter man extended his hand toward her purse, she acted without a moment's pause. Her instincts kicked in, refined through years of practice that had become instinctual. With a subtle shift of her weight to her back foot, she angled her body deftly, slipping just out of reach of his grasp. Simultaneously, she clutched her purse with determination, signaling that she would not relinquish it without a fight. The man scowled, evidently taken aback by the pushback, and that fleeting moment of uncertainty was precisely what Emma required. Nicholas, clutching his wallet, shifted slightly in her direction. His brows knitted together in perplexity. He anticipated acquiescence, a straightforward exchange that would extricate them from the predicament unscathed. Yet Emma chose to defy those conventions. The taller man advanced, his stance becoming increasingly confrontational. "Don't be foolish, madam," he remarked, his tone now icy. "Simply pass it along." Emma locked eyes with him, radiating unshakable confidence. "You should leave," she said, her voice steady yet resolute. Nicholas blinked, his head whipping around to face her, as though he couldn't quite believe what he had just heard. The diminutive figure emitted a sharp, grating laugh. "Is this for real?" He let out a derisive laugh. Emma remained silent. She subtly adjusted her position, finding balance in her stance. The motion was delicate, almost imperceptible, unless one was attuned to the nuances of observation. However, the taller man intercepted it. His gaze sharpened. "So, you believe you're strong, do you?" he whispered. Emma remained silent. Rather, she allowed her deeds to convey her message. The shorter man lunged for her once more, his patience evidently depleted. This time, Emma didn't merely dodge. She took decisive action. With impeccable timing, she deftly evaded his grasp and gently pressed her forearm against his, subtly altering his trajectory just enough to unsteady him. He wavered for a moment, and in that fleeting second, his intensity diminished. Nicholas stepped back, his fingers clenching around his wallet as he tried to make sense of the unfolding situation. He found himself torn between the urge to step in and the belief that Emma might have everything well in hand. The towering figure tightened his fists. "That's enough of this," he snarled, advancing toward Emma with unmistakable purpose. Emma took a deep breath, her body coiling with anticipation as she braced herself for the impending moment. She felt no urge to engage in conflict, no inclination to heighten the circumstances any further. However, she was determined not to allow herself or Nicholas to become an easy target. She refrained from making the first move. Instead, she lingered, observing his every move with keen attention. As he extended his hand, anticipating the contact with her arm, she deftly maneuvered away, eluding his grasp effortlessly. With a graceful flick, she gently brushed his wrist aside and retreated, her composure unwavering. It was not an assault. It wasn't even forceful. Yet it sufficed. The two men paused, uncertainty hanging in the air. They shared fleeting looks, their assurance wavering just enough for uncertainty to seep in. This was not unfolding as they had anticipated. What was expected to be a straightforward mugging had evolved into an unforeseen situation. Nicholas, positioned just a step behind Emma, finally found his voice. "I believe you ought to pay attention to her," he remarked, his tone unwavering yet tinged with intrigue. The diminutive figure cast another glance at Emma, his face a mask of ambiguity. After a moment of palpable tension, he exhaled sharply and stepped away. "It's not worth it," he whispered softly to himself. The taller man tightened his jaw, refraining from a dispute. With one last piercing look, he pivoted and trailed after his companion, vanishing into the dimness of the alley. For a brief moment, the stillness enveloped the surroundings. Emma exhaled deeply, easing her shoulders to alleviate the tightness. She glanced at Nicholas, anticipating a reaction of shock or perhaps even distress. Instead, she discovered him gazing at her with a mix of wonder and mirth. After a moment of pause, he replied, tucking his wallet back into his pocket. "That took me by surprise." Emma arched an eyebrow. "You thought I would just panic and leave it all to you?" Nicholas wore a sly grin. "To be frank, a touch." She folded her arms across her chest. "What actions would you have taken?" Nicholas let out a breath, his fingers combing through his hair. "To be frank, I'm uncertain. Most likely, I simply provided them with what they desired and moved on." Emma observed him intently for a moment. He appeared neither embarrassed nor frustrated. Rather, he was simply captivated by the situation. He leaned in slightly, a playful glint in his eye. "So, tell me," he said, tilting his head. "Are you always this skilled at dodging trouble? Or am I just fortunate to be out with an expert?" Emma couldn't resist a sly smile. "I prefer to be prepared and not taken by surprise." Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. "Never let me forget the lesson you've taught me." Emma cast a fleeting look at the alley where the men had vanished, then turned her gaze back to Nicholas. "Excellent." As is the case for many individuals. Nicholas locked eyes with her for an extended moment before a smile spread across his face. "It seems I could use another drink after that experience. How about we discover a spot that offers a bit more privacy?" Emma chuckled softly. "That seems like a solid idea." As they strolled along the street, shedding the weight of the moment, Nicholas came to a realization. This day unfolded in a way that was completely unexpected for him. And yet, somehow, he sensed it was merely the dawn of something far more captivating. Nicholas had experienced countless dates, yet none had concluded with an attempted mugging, and certainly not with his date skillfully defusing the situation while he remained there, astonished. As he and Emma strolled together, putting the charged atmosphere behind them, he discovered a fresh perspective as he observed her. She exuded tranquility and poise, as though the recent events had barely touched her at all. She appeared to be almost unconcerned about the recent attempt at robbery by two men. Finally, he spoke, shattering the quiet that lingered between them. "I must inquire what just transpired back there." Emma shot him a sly look, a smirk playing on her lips. "Are you referring to the moment when I refused to let them take my purse?" Nicholas released a soft chuckle, shaking his head in disbelief. "No, I mean the moment when you moved as if it were second nature to you. I may not be well versed in self-defense, yet it was clearly more than mere luck." Emma shrugged, her hands resting nonchalantly in the pockets of her coat. "I have been honing my skills in kickboxing since my teenage years. At this stage, it feels completely instinctive." Nicholas arched an eyebrow. "Martial arts with a punch." She gave a slight nod. "I began my journey at the age of 15. My father believed it was essential for me to learn self-defense. It seems to have gotten stuck." Nicholas took a moment to reflect on that. "As I stood there, ready to navigate my way out of that situation, you were already strategizing your physical approach to deal with them?" Emma beamed with delight. "Perhaps something along those lines." Nicholas chuckled softly, shaking his head in disbelief. "And here I believed I was the standout of the evening." Emma laughed softly, giving him a gentle nudge with her elbow. "There are still instances where you shine." They strolled in a serene silence for a few more moments until Nicholas paused before a tranquil-looking lounge. The soft illumination from within spilled onto the pavement, creating a welcoming atmosphere. He cast a fleeting look at Emma. "Have a drink," he suggested. After a brief pause for contemplation, she gave a nod of agreement. "What's stopping us?" As they entered, the ambience offered a refreshing departure from the upscale dining establishment they had just exited. The atmosphere was serene and personal, with gentle jazz melodies floating through the air and a few guests dispersed throughout, immersed in hushed dialogues. Nicholas guided them to a table tucked away at the back, far from the entrance, and motioned for her to take a seat before settling into his own chair across from her. A waiter came over, and after placing an order for an old-fashioned for himself and a whiskey sour for Emma, Nicholas leaned in, his forearms resting on the table. "Okay," he remarked, his voice light yet inquisitive. "Share something with me. Did you have intentions of revealing your hidden talents to me eventually? Or were you simply biding your time for the ideal moment to surprise me?" Emma wore a sly grin. "I typically don't find myself needing them on initial outings." Nicholas let out a soft laugh. "It seems fortune has smiled upon me, perhaps." The waiter reappeared, placing their drinks before them with a swift motion, then vanished once more into the bustling atmosphere. Emma lifted her glass to her lips, her gaze fixed on Nicholas as she took a sip. "She noted that you didn't appear particularly disturbed by the events that transpired." Nicholas let out a breath. "I believe it hasn't been completely processed at this point. One moment, I'm enjoying a date with an intelligent, stunning woman, and the next, it hits me that she could likely handle half the crowd in this bar if she chose to." Emma arched an eyebrow. "Would that make you feel uneasy?" Nicholas inclined his head, observing her intently for a brief moment before he shook his head in response. "Not at all. I find it to be quite intriguing." Emma's lips curled into a subtle smile. "Intriguing, isn't it?" Nicholas savored his drink, taking his time before responding. "I rarely encounter individuals who manage to astonish me. What about you? You've repeated that action twice this evening." Emma placed her glass on the table. "2 times. Nicholas gave a slight nod. "Initially, by managing yourself more effectively than many individuals I am acquainted with. Additionally, by keeping it low-key. Many individuals might feel rattled, discussing how frightening that experience was, perhaps even choosing to conclude the evening prematurely. And what about you? You simply moved on as if it were inconsequential." Emma gave a slight shrug. "What's the purpose of lingering on it? It occurred. It has come to an end. I refuse to allow negative experiences to overshadow a wonderful evening." Nicholas observed her intently, captivated by her viewpoint. He had encountered many strong, self-assured women in his life, yet Emma possessed a unique quality that set her apart. She was not merely strong. She possessed an unwavering mastery over herself. "So, tell me," he said, leaning back slightly, "what additional details would you like to share about yourself? Do you have any other secret skills?" Emma wore a sly grin. "You'll just have to wait and see what unfolds." Nicholas smiled broadly. "Indeed, I plan to." The remainder of the evening flowed seamlessly, filled with lively exchanges and joyous laughter. The earlier tension had dissipated, replaced by a smooth, undeniable connection that flowed effortlessly between them. As they departed from the lounge, the city had settled into a serene stillness, the streets now less bustling than earlier. Nicholas strolled alongside Emma to her car, his hands tucked into his pockets, stealing glances at her as they walked. He confessed that this was not what he had anticipated. Emma inclined her head thoughtfully. "Is it a pleasant surprise or an unwelcome one?" Nicholas beamed. "Undoubtedly excellent." She opened her car door and turned to look at him. "Congratulations on making it through our first date together. That's quite an achievement." Nicholas let out a soft laugh. "Does that imply I receive another one?" Emma feigned contemplation, then flashed a sly grin. "I'll consider it." Nicholas observed her as she entered her car, turned on the engine, and drove away. With his hands tucked away in his pockets, he stood there, a smile creeping onto his face. She is certainly someone who merits the anticipation. Nicholas possessed a remarkable talent for understanding others. In the realm of business, it became essential to discern when an individual was bluffing, when they were withholding information, or when they were attempting to extract more from a deal than they were prepared to offer. Yet Emma stood apart. She stood apart from everyone he had encountered, and that was what captivated him the most. Following their unforeseen encounter with the muggers, he couldn't shake thoughts of her from his mind, more than he was willing to acknowledge. There was an undeniable quality in her demeanor, a subtle assurance in her actions, and a remarkable composure that shone through even in moments of tension. He had encountered formidable, self-sufficient women previously, but Emma was not merely self-sufficient. She commanded her own destiny. She navigated that situation as if it were merely another task on her agenda. And then she settled into a barstool across from him, utterly unperturbed, sipping whiskey as if the world around her had remained unchanged. He had to encounter her once more. The following morning, he reached out to her. "I didn't think you'd call so quickly," Emma remarked as she answered the phone. Her voice carried a hint of amusement, as though she had been curious to see how long it would take for him to make the first move. Nicholas reclined in his chair, his gaze drifting toward the window of his office. "Did you really believe I would take a few days to pretend I wasn't interested?" She confessed that she expected you to maintain your composure. Nicholas wore a sly grin. "What if I choose to be genuine instead?" A moment of silence lingered, and he could nearly sense her smile radiating from the other end of the line. "So what is it that truly captures your interest?" "Dinner," he declared with unwavering certainty. "This evening." Emma chuckled gently. "Your determination is commendable." Nicholas confessed that he was accustomed to achieving his desires. "At this moment, I long to be in your presence once more." A brief silence followed, yet it lingered for a shorter duration this time. "Very well," she replied. "However, I'm choosing the location." Nicholas arched an eyebrow. "That seems reasonable. Where are we headed?" "You'll see," Emma remarked. "Prepare yourself for 7 o'clock." She ended the call abruptly, leaving him with a mix of amusement and heightened curiosity. ####. As 7 o'clock approached, Nicholas found himself waiting outside the address Emma had provided. He had anticipated a sophisticated restaurant or perhaps an exclusive club, a place marked by elegance and refinement. Instead, he discovered himself positioned outside a laid-back, unassuming eatery nestled in a serene neighborhood. Emma showed up a few minutes later, donning dark jeans, ankle boots, and a fitted leather jacket that gave her an effortlessly cool vibe. She couldn't help but smirk at the hint of confusion that flickered across his face. "Not quite what you had in mind," she playfully remarked. Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. "Not quite." She guided him inside, and the moment they crossed the threshold, the air was infused with the deep, enticing scent of spices. The venue was intimate, featuring just a few tables, yet it buzzed with locals who evidently understood that the cuisine was worth the anticipation. "This is one of my favorite spots," Emma remarked as they settled into a table by the window. No elaborate attire required, no extravagant wine selections, just genuinely delicious cuisine. Nicholas reclined in his chair, observing her intently. "Your unpredictability is quite delightful." Emma gave a slight shrug. "I enjoy surprising others." Without glancing at the menu, Emma placed her order as the waiter approached. Nicholas, confident in her choice, instructed the waiter to serve him whatever she ordered. While they awaited their meal, Nicholas leaned his elbows on the table, gazing at her with sincere intrigue. "So, share something with me. Had I not reached out, would you have reached out to me?" Emma inclined her head, feigning contemplation. "Perhaps." Nicholas wore a sly grin. "Perhaps." She returned the smirk. "I enjoy maintaining an air of intrigue." Nicholas let out a soft laugh. "And yet, somehow, I sense that I am the subject of examination in this scenario." Emma arched an eyebrow. "What leads you to believe that I'm observing you?" Nicholas remarked that your gaze seems to analyze those around you, as if you're striving to look beyond what they wish for you to perceive. Emma sipped her drink, her face a mask of mystery. "What do you believe I perceive?" Nicholas maintained his focus on her eyes. "Please share your thoughts." Emma observed him intently for a moment before placing her glass on the table. "You exude confidence, achieve success, and possess a natural ability to captivate others. However, you also appreciate having control. You're accustomed to taking the lead, both in your professional endeavors and personal experiences. You might believe you have this evening all figured out, yet there's a flicker of curiosity within you, as uncertainty lingers in the air for a change." Nicholas's lips curved into a gradual smile. You have a talent. Emma inclined her body just a touch. I simply pay attention to my surroundings. The waiter approached, placing down plates brimming with aromatic, steaming delicacies. Nicholas looked down, suddenly aware that he hadn't even inquired about their meal. Do you really have that much faith in me to place your order? Emma inquired, a playful lilt dancing in her tone. Nicholas grasped his fork and, with a decisive motion, brought it to his mouth, savoring the first bite without a moment's pause. The explosion of tastes was remarkable, and he emitted a contented hum before turning his gaze back to her. As it turns out, he declared, I do. Emma beamed, her satisfaction evident. The remainder of the evening unfolded with conversation and laughter, and to Nicholas's astonishment, they completely lost track of time. She stood apart from the women he typically pursued, those who sought to captivate him with their refined allure and calculated dialogue. Emma's complete lack of effort to impress him was precisely what rendered her so captivating. As they emerged into the open, a refreshing chill filled the air, and the streets lay in a serene hush. Nicholas faced her, his hands tucked into his pockets. I must confess, he remarked, this was likely the finest second date I've ever experienced. Emma wore a sly grin. Most likely. Nicholas let out a soft laugh. All right, absolutely. She cast a quick look at him before shifting her gaze to her car, which was parked just a few feet away. I'm pleased to hear that my restaurant selection was well received. He confessed that he adored it. I appreciate that you were genuine and didn't feel the need to put on a show for me. Emma arched an eyebrow. Who claims I wasn't putting in the effort? Nicholas smiled broadly. Were you? Emma wore a sly grin. It seems you'll need to remain here to discover the outcome. Nicholas advanced cautiously, each step deliberate and measured. I plan to. For a moment, they stood there, the air thick with an undeniable tension that transformed their connection. Emma observed him intently, as if contemplating a choice, and then, with a mischievous grin, she stepped back toward her car. Sleep well, Nicholas. She hopped in and sped away before he could utter another word, leaving him there, shaking his head in amusement. As he strolled toward his vehicle, a realization dawned upon him. Emma Hale was more than just a woman who caught his attention. She was the first person in ages who truly ignited his desire to pursue. Nicholas had never been one to pursue. He was the type of individual who focused on a goal or a person, drawing them into his sphere with ease. It wasn't a matter of arrogance. It was just the natural course of his existence. Yet Emma stood apart. She was not aligning with him. She maintained her rhythm, mirroring his enthusiasm, and just when he believed he had her all figured out, she would unexpectedly disrupt his equilibrium once more. Following their second date, he discovered that she occupied his thoughts more frequently than he had anticipated. It wasn't merely the allure, though that was unmistakable. It was how she pushed him, refusing to allow him to glide effortlessly through their exchanges with mere charisma. She resisted. She required him to earn her focus. That was an experience he found unfamiliar, and he enjoyed it. As Friday night approached, Nicholas took the initiative, crafting his own invitation without hesitation. He reached out to her right as she was wrapping up her tasks. Please tell me you don't have plans tonight, he said as soon as she picked up the phone. Emma chuckled gently. Greetings to you as well. Nicholas grinned, reclining in his office chair. Greetings. Now, please let me know that you're available. She paused for a brief moment. It varies. What do you suggest? He cast a quick look at the clock. An evening meal in an unfamiliar place for both of us. What a daring decision, Emma reflected. It seems you're presuming my agreement. Nicholas smiled broadly. I trust that you will. Emma hesitated, and he could nearly detect the playful smirk in her voice as she finally said, Send me the address. Nicholas chose a location on the far side of town, a quaint yet sophisticated rooftop restaurant he had heard whispers of but had yet to experience for himself. Upon his arrival, Emma was already present, poised against the railing, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape. She wore a sleek black dress, simple yet striking, fitting her perfectly and drawing attention effortlessly. Her hair cascaded down in soft waves, gently framing her shoulders. As she turned at the sound of his footsteps, he experienced that same magnetic pull, intensifying with each encounter. "You're early," he remarked, positioning himself next to her. Emma cast a fleeting look in his direction. "Indeed, you are as well." He let out a soft laugh. "Looks like we're on equal footing now." A waiter guided them to an intimate table at the rooftop's edge, where the city lights sprawled before them like a shimmering ocean of stars. Nicholas observed Emma as she examined the menu, her gaze meticulously traversing the options with a serene intensity. "Do you always take your time when making decisions?" he inquired. Emma raised her gaze. "I enjoy considering my choices carefully." Nicholas wore a sly grin. "That seems like a response from someone in the legal field." She inclined her head. "What about you? Do you tend to make decisions in a timely manner?" He confessed that it was nearly always the case. "Doubt has no place in my profession." Emma placed her menu on the table. "And what about beyond the workplace?" Nicholas pondered that for a moment. "I would assert that I continue to pursue my desires." Emma's lips formed a sly smile, hinting at secrets untold. "It's great to be informed." The waiter came back, and after setting down their orders, Nicholas leaned in a bit, his arms resting on the table. "So, share something with me," he remarked. "What influenced your decision to go on a third date with me?" Emma arched an eyebrow. "You presume I harbored uncertainties." "I take it you're not one to squander time," Nicholas remarked. "I also take it that you only agree to things that you genuinely desire." Emma observed him intently for a moment before bringing the glass of wine to her lips. "You have a point." Nicholas wore a sly grin. "I seldom find myself in that position." Emma chuckled softly. "Your confidence truly enhances your presence." Nicholas inclined his head thoughtfully. "What about you? Is it your tendency to leave others in suspense?" Emma locked eyes with him, a mysterious glimmer dancing in her gaze. "Only those who truly matter will remain." Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. "You're quite the handful, aren't you?" Emma wore a sly grin. "And still, here you stand." Their meal was served, and as they dined, the dialogue unfolded with the same ease as on that initial evening they encountered one another. Nicholas couldn't help but observe her more than was perhaps appropriate, captivated by the way she communicated with intent, and how her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm when she discussed something she cared deeply about. Midway through the meal, Emma reclined a bit and crossed her arms. "Very well," she replied. "Share a personal detail about yourself that wouldn't be found in a professional publication." Nicholas arched an eyebrow. "It seems you've been searching for information about me." Emma gave a slight shrug. "I appreciate staying updated." Nicholas wore a sly grin. "That seems reasonable." He paused, contemplating the thought that wasn't widely known, then remarked, "I nearly pursued a career in architecture." Emma's eyebrows arched ever so slightly. "Is that so?" Nicholas gave a slight nod. "I've always been captivated by design, the intricacies of construction, and how structures influence the environment around them. However, pursuing business was consistently the sensible option." Emma pondered that. "Do you wish you had done things differently?" Nicholas let out a breath. "Not quite. Yet, there are moments when I find myself pondering what it might have been like." Emma drummed her fingers lightly on her glass. "You would have excelled in that role." Nicholas wore a sly grin. "Is that really the case?" She gave a slight nod. "You focus on the finer points. You anticipate the future. Those are admirable traits in a designer." Nicholas observed her, a playful glimmer lighting up his gaze. "What about you? Are there any other career options I should consider?" For the first time that evening, Emma paused, uncertainty flickering across her features. "I considered pursuing a path in criminal psychology." Nicholas inclined his body forward just a touch. "So what held you back?" Emma gave a slight shrug. "I suppose I came to understand that my interests leaned more towards the legal aspects of matters. Yet, I find joy in unraveling the complexities of others, grasping the motivations behind their actions." Nicholas observed her intently. "So, have you unraveled the mystery of who I am yet?" Emma locked eyes with him, lingering for a heartbeat longer than needed before speaking, though not completely. However, I am diligently focused on it. Nicholas let out a soft laugh. Shouldn't I be concerned? Emma wore a sly grin. Perhaps. As they wrapped up their meal, Nicholas realized one undeniable truth. He was far from unraveling the complexities of her character. Stepping outside, Emma faced him, her arms crossed defiantly. "Ah, Mr. Clark, it seems you've made it through yet another evening in my company. What are your thoughts and emotions?" Nicholas wore a sly grin. "It seems to me that I ought to be the one posing that question to you." Emma inclined her head thoughtfully. "I believe I'll allow you to treat me to dinner once more before I respond to that." Nicholas smiled broadly. "That certainly presents an intriguing challenge." Emma beamed with delight. "Could be." He observed her approach her car, his hands remaining tucked in his pockets. Just before stepping inside, she cast a fleeting look over her shoulder at him. "Sleep well, Nicholas." He shook his head, a smile playing on his lips. "Sweet dreams, Emma." As she drove away, he let out a breath, raking his fingers through his hair. He had never pursued before. Yet what about Emma? He was more than eager to bend the rules. Nicholas found himself grappling with the unfamiliarity of uncertainty. His existence revolved around mastery, characterized by swift and resolute decision-making. He excelled in intense scenarios, whether navigating business deals or overseeing his growing domain. Yet, with Emma, everything seemed to defy expectation. Her mysterious charm kept him on his toes, and for the first time in ages, he relished the thrill of the pursuit. Their third date flowed seamlessly, but it ignited a desire for something deeper. Emma possessed a captivating allure, offering just the right amount of mystery to pique his interest, while skillfully keeping him guessing about her true self. She possessed a talent for guiding discussions subtly, uncovering details about him while keeping her own story largely hidden. It was a talent he acknowledged, one he had employed on numerous occasions. However, the challenge of competing against an equally skilled opponent lay in the inevitability that, sooner or later, one of them would falter. And Nicholas began to understand that he didn't mind if, for once, it was him. On that Saturday, he made the choice to alter the established norms. Rather than extending an invitation to Emma for yet another elegant dinner, he opted to send her a message in the afternoon. "Prepare yourself by 6. Choose attire that feels easy and relaxed. ****. A few minutes later, her response arrived. "That lacks clarity. Should I be worried? ****. Nicholas grinned slyly as he responded with his fingers dancing over the keys. "Only if you dislike unexpected twists." She replied without hesitation. "I don't harbor any animosity towards them. I simply enjoy being aware of their arrival. ****. Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. "In that case, you'll need to place your trust in me." At precisely 6, he arrived in front of her apartment in a polished black SUV, a departure from his typical luxury sedan. As Emma stepped outside, he instantly perceived the change in her demeanor. Rather than opting for heels and a tailored dress, she chose dark jeans, a plain black t-shirt, and sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a relaxed ponytail, giving her an air of effortless casualness. Yet the keen intensity in her eyes revealed that she was still assessing the circumstances. She eased into the passenger seat, casting a quick glance at him while fastening her seatbelt. "Will you share our destination? Or must I figure it out on my own?" Nicholas grinned slyly as he merged onto the road. What joy would that bring? Emma let out a soft chuckle, shaking her head in disbelief. "It seems you take pleasure in leaving me uninformed, don't you?" "I take pleasure in maintaining a sense of intrigue," he amended. She looked out the window, observing the city lights dimming in the distance, giving way to the serene, expansive roads that stretched beyond the town. After approximately 20 minutes, Nicholas veered onto a secluded road that opened up to a vast expanse. As they approached, Emma's gaze sharpened, attempting to discern what lay ahead. Suddenly, it hit her as she caught sight of the centerpiece, a private driving course, featuring a stunning lineup of high-performance cars waiting by the entrance. Emma glanced at him, arching an eyebrow in curiosity. A track for racing? Nicholas smiled broadly. I decided to change things around a bit. She let out a breath, a playful grin dancing at the edge of her mouth. And here I was, expecting you to whisk me away on a classic romantic picnic. Nicholas let out a soft laugh. This doesn't resonate with me. He pulled up close to the entrance and stepped out, making his way around to her side to open the door. As she emerged, her gaze swept across the illuminated track, capturing the sleek silhouettes of the sports cars poised in the pit lane. Emma folded her arms, casting a sidelong glance at him. Allow me to predict. You're about to showcase your driving prowess in an attempt to win my admiration. Nicholas wore a sly grin. I wouldn't describe it as an effort. Emma chuckled gently, a smile playing on her lips as she shook her head. Very well, Mr. Clark. Reveal your talents to me. They approached the track, where an instructor stood ready, holding the keys to one of the cars. Nicholas donned a pair of racing gloves, settling into the driver's seat with an assurance that unmistakably indicated this was not his inaugural experience. Emma lingered close, observing with a hint of delight as he fine-tuned the controls. Without a moment's pause, he pressed the accelerator, the engine growling to life as it raced down the track. Emma observed him navigate the curves with ease, the car reacting to his every command with remarkable accuracy. He was undeniably talented. She had anticipated a wild exhibition of arrogance, yet his driving proved to be measured, fluid, and unmistakably proficient. As he rolled back into the pit lane, he exited the vehicle, casually tossing the keys between his fingers while flashing her a confident smirk. It's your moment now. Emma arched an eyebrow. You seem to think I'm familiar with driving in that manner. Nicholas wore a sly grin. You're brimming with unexpected delights. I thought I would check if this was one of those instances. Emma shook her head, yet a spark of amusement danced in her eyes. Silently, she slipped into the driver's seat, fine-tuning the settings with the ease of someone who had mastered the routine long ago. Nicholas rested against the car, observing her as she revved the engine with a sense of anticipation. Suddenly, she dashed away. Nicholas's smirk gradually disappeared as he observed her navigate the car with a skill that was nearly disconcerting. She wasn't merely good. She was exceptionally good. Every turn was executed with precision, every acceleration masterfully managed. She maneuvered the vehicle with the ease of someone who had mastered the art long ago. As she returned, she found him gazing at her with a look that bordered on admiration. Emma emerged, nonchalantly flicking the keys back in his direction. What were you mentioning? Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. I should have seen that coming. Emma wore a sly grin. You're not the only one who enjoys leaving others in suspense. Nicholas let out a breath, his fingers combing through his hair. Okay, I'll confess. I'm truly impressed. Emma inclined her head thoughtfully. It appears that you are not someone who is easily swayed by superficial charm. Nicholas regarded her for a moment, a smirk playing on his lips. I am not. Emma locked eyes with him, a mysterious glimmer dancing in her gaze. It's reassuring to be informed. As they departed from the track and made their way back to the city, the atmosphere between them had transformed. An unvoiced comprehension lingered, a subtle recognition that what was unfolding between them had transcended mere casual interest. Nicholas had dedicated his existence to steering clear of the unforeseen. Yet with Emma, anticipation filled him. Nicholas had always maintained a certain distance from others. His existence was crafted with meticulous attention to detail, fostering thoughtfully selected connections and calculated partnerships. He was a figure of admiration, envy, and even fear, yet only a handful ever truly understood him. It was simpler that way, minimizing complications and reducing distractions. Yet Emma was evolving into a dilemma he could no longer overlook. After the racetrack, an undeniable change had occurred in their dynamic. He had moved beyond mere intrigue regarding her. He sought to grasp her essence. She remained unfazed by his riches, untroubled by his self-assured demeanor, and, unlike the majority around him, she refused to allow him to control the rhythm of their interactions. She pushed him in a manner that was more thrilling than exasperating, and that was perilous because it ignited a desire for more. During that week, he discovered he was shifting around his schedule, prioritizing meetings to carve out moments for her. Typically, he would have perceived that as a flaw, yet with Emma, it didn't come across as a surrender of authority. It seemed deliberate. On Wednesday evening, he sent her a message. "How about joining me for dinner at my place this evening?" Her response arrived just moments after. "Is this about cooking for me? Or is it a challenge to determine if I can manage takeout?" Nicholas grinned slyly as he responded with his fingers dancing over the keys. "I don't evaluate others. I simply appreciate having clarity on their position, ***. She replied without hesitation. "Excellent. If this is about showcasing domestic abilities, I must inform you that cooking is not my forte, ***. Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. "Understood. Simply come as you are, ***. At exactly 7, the elevator to his penthouse slid open, and Emma entered with an air of confidence, as if she were meant to be there. She wore dark jeans and a fitted sweater, her hair casually pulled back. She cast a leisurely look around, absorbing the contemporary, open-concept area adorned with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the city skyline. "You live just as I envisioned," she remarked, stepping deeper into the room. Nicholas wore a sly grin while he filled 2 glasses with wine. "And how does that work?" She grasped the glass from his hand, her head tilting ever so slightly. Sleek, sophisticated, and subtly detached, creating an atmosphere where the true essence of habitation remains a mystery. Nicholas let out a soft chuckle, resting against the kitchen counter. "Is that really apparent?" Emma savored a sip of her wine before gently placing the glass down. "A small amount." Nicholas gestured to the dining table, showcasing an exquisite arrangement of fresh seafood, expertly grilled vegetables, and a delightful selection of appetizers. "I must caution you," he said, pulling out a chair for her. "This was catered for me. In the event that you thought I would be preparing a meal." Emma settled into her seat with a sly grin. "I had a feeling." Nicholas settled into his chair opposite her, observing intently as she sampled the dish, her face revealing no hints at first. After a moment of contemplation, she gave a nod of approval. "It's not too shabby," she remarked. Nicholas arched an eyebrow. "Such commendation, especially from you, carries significant weight." Emma beamed with delight. "I'm not one to offer praise lightly." He observed her intently for a brief moment before placing his fork on the table. "I have observed." Emma cast a sidelong look at him, intrigue dancing in her gaze. "And still, you persist in your efforts to win my admiration." Nicholas let out a breath, tilting his head just a bit. "I don't seek to captivate others." Emma wore a sly grin. "So how would you describe this?" He reclined in his chair, observing her intently. "I refer to it as ensuring your return." Emma locked eyes with him, maintaining the connection for a moment before reaching for her wine once more. Intelligent approach. The night unfolded in a cozy cadence of dialogue and playful jests. Nicholas felt a sense of ease that had eluded him for weeks, and it wasn't due to the wine or the ambience. It was all because of her presence. She boldly confronted him, standing her ground whenever he pushed limits. She perceived the meticulously crafted facade that others readily embraced without question. Once dinner was finished, they transitioned to the living room, the skyline shimmering in the background through the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows. Emma tucked one leg beneath her as she settled onto the couch, observing him with a gaze that revealed nothing. She confessed that you were not what she had anticipated. Nicholas wore a sly grin. Improved or declined? Emma feigned contemplation before breaking into a smirk. To be determined. Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. And here I was believing I had at least reached a level beyond mere acceptability. Emma inclined her head ever so slightly. It seems you prefer clarity and certainty in your situation, don't you? Nicholas let out a breath, leaning his arm against the back of the couch. I prefer clarity. Emma observed him intently for a prolonged moment before inclining her body slightly closer. Perhaps that is the issue you are facing. Nicholas arched an eyebrow. What seems to be the issue? Emma wore a sly grin. You're accustomed to the familiarity of others' behaviors, to understand precisely what they desire from you. What occurs when an individual doesn't align with your expectations? Nicholas locked eyes with her, captivated by her uncanny ability to understand him with such ease. Then I make the necessary changes. Emma let out a gentle laugh. Well-articulated response. A serene stillness lingered in the air before Nicholas broke the quiet once more. My feelings for you, Emma, are quite strong. Emma raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement dancing across her face. I understand. Nicholas let out a soft chuckle. Naturally, you do. Emma placed her glass down and locked eyes with him, revealing a tenderness that was uncharacteristic, a hint of vulnerability. I feel the same way about you, Nicholas. However, I am not an enigma that can be unraveled in just a matter of weeks. Nicholas nodded, a gradual smile emerging. Excellent. Since I have no rush. Emma observed him for a moment longer before reclining against the couch. In that case, you could potentially have an opportunity. Nicholas let out a soft laugh, shaking his head in amusement. I appreciate that as a form of motivation. Emma wore a sly grin. It would be wise to consider that. The evening lingered, the dialogue evolving into a softer, more personal exchange. Neither of them voiced it, yet an unspoken understanding lingered in the air. What was unfolding between them had transcended mere casualness. Nicholas had dedicated his existence to maintaining a careful distance from others. Yet with Emma, he found himself questioning whether, for the very first time, he truly didn't want to. Nicholas had always viewed himself as someone lacking in patience. In the realm of commerce, he exhibited a sharp decisiveness, an unwavering determination, and an uncanny ability to anticipate the next move. Patience belonged to those who lacked power, and power was a thing he never surrendered lightly. Yet, in the case of Emma, patience had transformed into an essential virtue. She was not the type to be hurried, nor would she be drawn into his sphere simply because he desired it. She required him to earn each second, each fleeting insight into her realm, and oddly enough, he found it agreeable. Indeed, he had never desired anything as much. Weeks had passed since their dinner at his penthouse, and during that time, they had found themselves in a rhythm that neither had anticipated. There were no announcements, no conversations about their nature or the direction in which things were headed. Instead, there existed a subtle comprehension, an implicit accord that whatever unfolded between them was a journey worth pursuing. On an uncommon free evening, Nicholas sent her a straightforward invitation. Please come over. Her response was equally straightforward. Overbearing. Nicholas grinned slyly as he responded with his fingers dancing over the keys. Does that mean no? Her reply arrived just moments after. I will arrive in 30 minutes. As she made her entrance, the city lights had already embraced their familiar radiance, stretching elongated shadows across his penthouse. He opened the door to discover her there, looking effortlessly stylish as always, in jeans and a simple blouse, her hair neatly tied back just enough to keep it from her face. She possessed an effortless demeanor that exuded both tranquility and authority, leaving him feeling disoriented. He moved aside, granting her entry. That was quick. Emma strolled by him with a sly grin on her face. I didn't want to make you wait. Nicholas observed her as she absorbed the surroundings, a place that felt known yet retained an air of unfamiliarity, stirring within him a deep desire for her to feel at ease in this space. She placed her bag on the ground and faced him, her arms folded defiantly. What brings us together today? Nicholas casually shrugged, resting against the counter with a relaxed demeanor. Is it necessary for me to have one? Emma squinted, her gaze sharp, as if she were piecing together the unspoken words lingering in the air. You seem like someone who always has a purpose behind their actions. Nicholas let out a breath, his fingers combing through his hair. Perhaps I simply long to catch a glimpse of you. Emma observed him intently for a moment before giving a slow nod. That seems reasonable. They fell into a comfortable cadence, sharing wine and engaging in conversation, the playful exchanges that had become instinctive for them. Yet this evening had an unusual quality. An unspoken tension lingered in the atmosphere, a sensation both were acutely aware of, though words had yet to give it form. Nicholas at last shattered the stillness. "May I pose a question to you?" Emma raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "It varies. Could this be a deceptive inquiry?" Nicholas wore a sly grin. "No gimmicks. Merely a matter of curiosity." She reclined a bit, offering him a subtle nod. "Understood. Inquire." He observed her intently, his demeanor taking on a more solemn tone. "What are you seeking from this?" Emma remained composed in the face of the question, yet she took her time before responding. Instead, she savored her wine slowly, contemplating her response with deliberation. When she finally found her voice, it was softer than usual. "I never settle for anything less than complete, Nicholas. If I'm committed, I'm all in. However, I refrain from hastily diving into situations solely based on immediate gratification." Nicholas nodded, taking in her words thoughtfully. "That's not a rejection." Emma wore a sly grin. "Absolutely not." Nicholas placed his glass on the table and leaned in a bit. "Please let me know what you require." Emma locked eyes with him, an enigmatic glimmer dancing in her gaze. "I need to understand that this isn't merely a pastime for you, that your interest goes beyond the mere excitement I bring." Nicholas let out a breath, his head shaking slightly. "You believe I pursue others merely for amusement?" Emma gave a slight shrug. "It seems like you're accustomed to having your desires fulfilled. Sometimes it seems you might overlook the reasons behind your desires." Nicholas pondered that for a moment before giving a nod of agreement. "Indeed, you are correct. I typically refrain from that." Emma inclined her head thoughtfully. "What about me?" Nicholas maintained his focus on her eyes. "With you, I commit." A lengthy pause lingered in the air, yet it held no discomfort. It was electric, imbued with a weight that transcended mere language. Emma exhaled softly, gathering her resolve as she rose and approached him. She paused just within reach, allowing him to catch a glimpse of a gentler emotion dancing in her eyes. "I won't make this easy for you," she declared. Nicholas wore a sly grin. "I would feel let down if that were the case." Emma observed him intently for a moment longer before giving a nod of understanding. "Perhaps that means we'll find our way after all." Nicholas extended his hand, his fingers lightly grazing hers before she surrendered it completely. It was a modest act, yet it carried a weight that eclipsed all other moments they had shared. For the first time, Nicholas found himself not contemplating the next 3 moves. He was not strategizing his next step or weighing the consequences. He existed solely in that moment alongside her, and for the first time that felt sufficient. The conclusion of this narrative resonates profoundly, not due to a shocking turn of events, but because it underscores a more significant truth. Genuine connection stems from choice rather than control. Nicholas Clark begins the narrative as a man accustomed to obtaining precisely what he desires, at the moment he desires it. He exudes confidence, makes decisions with certainty, and maintains a strong sense of control. However, encountering Emma tests all his preconceived notions, not only regarding relationships but also about his own identity. The allure of this journey lies in the fact that Nicholas undergoes a gradual transformation rather than an instantaneous one. He doesn't transform into a different person merely because he encounters someone who captivates his interest. Rather, his change unfolds slowly, shaped by the experiences he has with Emma, particularly how she stands her ground when others would merely conform. She compels him to reflect, to interrogate his own longings, and ultimately, to select something genuine over something easy. Emma, in contrast, is a character who will not accept anything that isn't authentic. She possesses strength and independence, refusing to enter a relationship merely for the sake of convenience. What makes her relationship with Nicholas so intriguing is her independence. She doesn't rely on him, and that's precisely why he comes to understand his desire for her. The elegance of the conclusion lies in its understated nature. There's no dramatic proclamation, no over-the-top love story cliché that pushes them toward an improbable ending. Rather, it revolves around comprehension, where two individuals acknowledge that their connection is valuable enough to delve into, without the pressure of conforming to a set framework. The concluding moments in which Nicholas extends his hand to Emma and opts to be fully present with her are undeniably the most impactful of the entire narrative. For someone who has dedicated his life to strategizing and anticipating the next step, embracing the present is a triumph. For Emma, the understanding that he is making this choice not out of convenience but out of authenticity is everything she requires. This narrative doesn't revolve around the theme of one individual rescuing another. This narrative unfolds the journey of two individuals who encounter one another as equals, and, on their own terms, choose to embrace the idea that their union enhances their lives, and that, above all else, makes the journey worthwhile.